Calligraphy, hand lettering, brush lettering, what's the difference? Hey everyone, it's Ashley from Art Summits, and today I'm breaking down all of the differences between the types of pretty writing there are out there so that you know which one you should try and which one you should try, especially if you are a beginner just starting out. So first, a little history lesson. I just want to start with the origin of the word calligraphy. It quite literally means beautiful writing. And if we look at it here, the Greek origins, it's Calli plus graphia. Calli means beautiful or fine, and graphia is just like a written record of something, whether it's someone's life, like in a biography, or a place, like cartography. So that's where the word calligraphy comes from. It is quite literally beautiful writing. With calligraphy, you're writing letters and words in one fluid motion, just kind of like I did here. I didn't stop and start and go back and like fix anything really in my letters. It was all in one fell swoop. And as we all know, writing, whether we're just learning how to write as a kid or we're learning how to write with a calligraphy pen, it takes a lot of practice. And so you are practicing specific letter forms to get that muscle memory down. Hand lettering, on the other hand, is actually not writing, it's drawing. So you're not creating the letters and the words in one fell swoop like you are with writing. Instead, you may be planning it out a little bit, sketching it first, going back and fixing mistakes and adding things. And so that's what makes it different from calligraphy. So those are our two main categories of beautiful writing, or beautiful letters: calligraphy and hand lettering. And I'm going to write all this down like this to break it down so it's easier in case you're a visual learner like me and you need to kind of see things categorized. So now we can dive into each of these two main categories even further. Under calligraphy, we have dip pen calligraphy, fountain pen calligraphy, and brush calligraphy. Dip pen calligraphy can include pens with a pointed nib. The nib is just the little metal piece that goes into the pen holder, this part right here. So it can be pointed, like this one is, or it could have a broad edge, which would be just a flat edge here instead of a pointy edge. Now, under pointed nibs, we can go even further. There are a couple of different styles you can create with those nibs. You can create a more traditional style of calligraphy, like copperplate or Spencerian, or you can create a more modern style that is a little more flowy or even bouncy. I don't have an example of a broad edge nib, so I can't show you here, but I will include a picture so you can see what that style of calligraphy looks like. And then with fountain pen calligraphy, it's very similar to a dip pen calligraphy, except that the ink lives in a cartridge that is housed within the pen itself, so you don't need to dip it into ink continuously. Now, brush calligraphy, we can break this down even further. So we have brush calligraphy that can be done with a felt tip pen, with a bristle tip pen, or even a paintbrush. So a felt tip pen is something like this, where the little tip is made out of felt and it's flexible, so that when you apply pressure, you get a thick line, just like you do with dip pen calligraphy. A bristle tip pen has actual bristles, just like a paintbrush, except that it's contained in a pen. And so you can get, this is a big brush to be doing in this small space, but you can see what I mean, that you can get variations in line width, thin and thick, without needing to go back and draw. And then finally we have an actual paintbrush, which we can use similarly to the bristle tip pen, and these take a little bit more control. That was pretty messy. Haven't done brush lettering in a while. So those are all the different things under the calligraphy category. And now if we go over to the hand lettering side, there are a a couple of different things to note here. We basically have faux calligraphy or fake calligraphy, and then what I'm just calling everything else. So faux calligraphy is hand lettering or drawn words and letters to make it look like this over here, which was created with a real calligraphy pen. So faux calligraphy typically would start out like this, doing a monoline version, and then coming back in and drawing the rest of those letters in. So we'd be filling in the shadows on the downstrokes. And faux calligraphy is really useful if you want the look of calligraphy, but you're working in a format that is much larger than what you can create with a tiny little nib. So if you're doing any kind of signage or anything on a larger scale and you want it to look like calligraphy, it will require faux calligraphy. Got a little messy there, I didn't leave enough space, and so that's the gist of how faux calligraphy works. And then everything else is any other style of hand lettering. It could be block lettering, for instance, that has some dimension and shading and little designs in it. It can be anything along those lines. So what about pencil calligraphy? Some people like to use pencils, especially if they have really soft lead, to create calligraphy or to practice using drills. So for instance, if you use a really light touch on your upstrokes and then apply pressure on the downstrokes, you can get a little bit of a variation in between those thick and thin lines using a pencil. So if you're doing this in writing, like you are over here with calligraphy, then that's technically calligraphy. But if you're going in and doing like I just did with the faux calligraphy, then you are lettering. So the bottom line and the biggest takeaway to remember is that calligraphy is writing and lettering is drawing. So if you're just starting out, which one should you try first? I tend to think that people who have no experience with calligraphy or hand lettering should start with calligraphy, because so many hand lettering styles are based, like you can see with this faux calligraphy, on what real calligraphy looks like. It'll help you more if you have some practice with real calligraphy. By starting with a dip pen and a flexible nib like this, you'll develop the muscle memory for creating these thin and thick lines, and you'll know where exactly they go, so that it'll make more sense when you go over here and you start drawing those lines to mimic the look of traditional dip pen calligraphy. I did a whole separate video on why you may not want to start with faux calligraphy, so click the link around this video to check that out. So once you understand why beautiful letters and words look the way they do because of the nature of a flexible nib with tines, and once you understand how to write that way, it'll help you understand how to draw that way. Now, if you're not sure which tools to use to get started with real dip pen calligraphy, then check out our free resource. It's a checklist of all the best pen holders and nibs and inks to get started with pointed pen calligraphy. So I hope this clears up the confusion between calligraphy and hand lettering. If you have ever been confused, let me know, or if you still have questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.